Okay, folks, let's get an OS installed. Now, if you, depending on the kit you got, but I'm just going to go based off of the Kana kit here. Inside of the package, you'll have a, let me stop autofocus so it doesn't jump around. It's aggravating. There we go. Cool. Okay, so you'll have a SD card, micro SD card reader writer. I'll show you how to put the SD card in. And then this will just go into a USB port on your computer. If you've got a Mac and you have only USB-C, hopefully you have a converter. And then you'll have a micro SD card, right? So here's a micro SD card. So all you need to do is go ahead and pop the put the SD card in, then pop it into a USB port on your machine. All right, now you'll need the Raspberry Pi imager, or some imager like Balena, but let's use the Raspberry Pi imager. It's easy. So download it for your operating system. I have already done it for my Windows machine. And then start it up. So, Raspberry Pi. Excellent. So the first thing I'm going to do is choose my OS. Now, a couple of decisions to make. If you're on if you have a 32-bit, so you'd have a Pi 3 or a Pi 0, you need to use 32-bit. So you can use a version with a desktop. That's if you would prefer to do all of this on a desktop, meaning it's just a computer like your PC or your Mac is a computer. The other option is to jump down to Other, and you could choose a version without a desktop, meaning you're just going to SSH into your Pi. You're going to use a remote shell. That's what I'm going to do here. Now, I have a 64-bit machine, so I'm going to jump down and I'm going to go to the 64-bit Lite. So this is the no desktop version. Nice thing about this, the no desktop, right, either 32 or 64, is it's really fast to install. Now, the other thing is I am doing this on a solid-state drive, but none of this is any different than what you're doing. This part. All right, so I'm going to choose my drive. I'm going to go to my settings, and I'm just going to leave this as CritterTrap 1. I already have a CritterTrap in my SSH, so that's why I added the 1. You want to enable SSH, so you can call this whatever you want. Right? Give it any name. You can leave it as Raspberry Pi if you choose. Helps to give it a name. Enable SSH, and then come down and set the username and password. Now, if you're going to expose your Pi to the outside world, so you're running it as a server and you're going to have a web address and you want to be able to get to your Pi, you probably want to change this to a different user than Pi. But for this purpose, it's absolutely fine. And the default password for every Pi on the planet is Raspberry. Change your password to something else. Again, especially if you're going to expose this to the planet. So I'll pick a password. Don't forget what those are. And if you're going to be using wireless, then configure your Wi-Fi. So whatever the name of your local Wi-Fi LAN is, you could tell by looking on your phone or your computer, right? What name do you choose when you connect? So that would go here, and whatever the password is. Now I have an Ethernet cable plugged into my Pi, so I don't need this. And then set your locale, so wherever you are. I'm in Maine, closest to New York, so I'll leave that as New York. And it's just a matter of writing now. Right? Now this is going to go, say yes. This is going to go really fast. Yours is not, right? Not as fast anyway. Right? So this will go a heck of a lot quicker, and the reason is it's a solid-state drive. And I don't have a desktop version. So if you're on an SSD with a desktop, this whole process might take 10 minutes. It can be that slow. If you're serious about playing with your Raspberry Pi and you're going to keep kind of doing stuff with it, get a solid-state drive. Stargate is a good adapter, under 20 bucks on Amazon, and you can get a Kingston 256, right? Something like this one here, right? So a Kingston 256 drive for under 20 bucks now too, which is awesome. But the micro SD card is going to work awesome, right? So the way we're doing it right now. All right, it automatically ejects, so I'm going to pull this out. Now, folks, once you're done, Bulldog just heard my computer beep when I pulled the USB out. Upside down, back of the Pi. It's going to slide in, and it goes in that far. So just go ahead and pop that in. Don't worry about any wiring or anything just yet. We're going to talk about that in an upcoming video. And then, depending on your kit, if you got a Connor kit, you might have got this Pi switch with it. If you didn't, you don't need it. Right? You're just going to grab your power supply out of your kit, USB-C, and just plug it in. And again, nothing else needs to be connected. I just happen to have a camera hooked up here, and obviously I've got the jumper wires set up for the reed switch, and we'll do all of this in a separate video. All right, now since this was relatively quick, let's while this is booting, let's get VS Code installed. So just type VS Code download. You don't even have to type that. Well, just start typing for me. But if you type VS Code download, and it's code.visualstudio.com. And once again, just choose your flavor. So it's either going to be a Mac or a Windows machine, probably for most of you. But again, it runs perfectly on a Linux machine too. So grab your version and open it up. So just VS Code, or go to your apps on your Mac. Right? So if you just start typing VS Code, and it will install. Folks, when you're installing it, if it gives you any options to create, a shortcut on the desktop or environment variables or any of that stuff, just say yes to everything. It'll be helpful. The ability to kind of open up VS Code from a folder or a terminal. So just say yes, 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 or find a video if you want installing VS Code. But if you know how to use a computer, no matter what age you are, you can get it installed. Okay. So once you fire it up, right? So start up VS Code. I just happen to have this file open. It's probably going to ask you to do some setup stuff. You can close all of that down. Don't worry about it. Now you're going to need one extension, and the extension that we're going to need is the ability to SSH into our Pi. Right? So what you need to do is you're going to have to come over to your extensions. So over here on the very left, you can go up to your extensions, and you're going to type in remote. And as you start typing, eventually what you want is remote SSH. It's kind of hesitant about using this at first, but it's shocking how good it works. It's not laggy at all when I'm on my local network. It's awesome. So you're going to go to remote SSH, and this will say install. I already have it installed. It'll take a couple of seconds. Relatively quick to get it installed. Okay, so once you've done that, now you can go to the icon for Remote Explorer. Right? You'll have a new icon over here once it installs, and this will allow you to add remotes. Now I have some remotes already. I've got 3 of them. So for my desktop version, I've got one for my server version, one for my Pi Zero. We're going to add one for the Critter Trap. So the way you add a remote, and again, you might just see this. You're going to come all the way over and click Add. And you need to SSH in. So it's going to be SSH, right, secure shell, Pi. Right, now Pi is just the username that I chose at, and I had crittertrap1.local. Now, if you know what the IP of your Pi is, you can just put that there. But there's a nice easy way to be able to do this. Now, why Pi in crittertrap1? Well, it's because remember when we set this up. I'm just going to pick. I just have to choose anything so I could have the settings button. I don't know why they just don't show it, but again, it's not what I chose earlier. Crittertrap1, that's why I have Crittertrap1 up here. And if I come down, Pi, that's why I have Pi here. If you put some other names for those two, then you would have those names. If you're brand new, leave Pi alone. Call your Raspberry Pi whatever the heck you want, right? But leave Pi for now. Right? Okay. All right, so let's SSH in. We're going to hit enter. Now you have to choose where you're going to store your config information. So we're going to put that in. I'll show you that in a second where that info is. And now it's behind me, but just choose connect. I could actually just freeze myself on the screen, but it's a lot easier to do that. And your platform on your Raspberry Pi is Linux. Obviously, you could SSH do this to get into your Mac or another PC, right? It's kind of cool. Local could not resolve. Let's see here. Critter trap 1. Here's the reason. This is fantastic. All right, so I'll cut out some of the dummy part, but I'll show you some of the dummy part too. I showed you where you were going to put your SD card, and then I told you, but I'm not doing it that way. I'm using a solid state drive, and I never. You got to plug this end into the actual Pi. Huh, go figure. Yeah, it's pretty funny. All right. All right. So that's kind of that part was kind of like you plugging your just like you plugging your SD card in the back here. All right, bonehead. All right, now I'm going to plug this in. I'll cut out some of that, but retain the fact that I'm a bonehead. All right, let's give this let's give it a second here. I still have a little coffee left, so I can drown my sorrows. All right, I'm impatient. It's not ready yet, but let's do it anyway. Although it might be with the solid state drive. It's awesome. So again, you won't if I might have mentioned this, but you won't see any of these if you haven't done this before. So where it says SSH, I'm just going to come over and click the little new remote and SSH, and it'll be pi at CRITTERTRAP1 is what I called mine. And again, these are the settings that you chose. If you're new to all of this, just leave the username Pi for now. And then Critter Trap 1 was whatever you would call your Raspberry Pi when you were setting it up in the Raspberry Pi OS. All right, let's hit enter. And we have to choose a config. I'm going to choose and then connect over here. And let's see here, we have a Linux machine. Raspberry Pi's Linux. Yeah, let's give it 1 second here, and then we'll choose to try it again. I was a little bit impatient, especially after screwing up. Nice. So we're going to choose continue. And they're going to ask you to put in the password. You got to do it again too. Don't forget your password. Right, I'm going to close this one down behind. I don't need. So I got a couple here. Oops. Did I just closed down my remote accidentally? Oh, here it is, right here. Cool. Okay. All right. So now we're connected. So what you need to do is you're going to come up and choose Explore, right? And you want to open up a folder on your Pi. Now, we don't have a folder that we've created yet, so we're just going to open up Pi. So it'll be there by default, so home/Pi. Unless you had changed your name to something else, it'll be home/ whatever you created. But again, if you're new, leave it at Pi. Although I guess it's a little too late for that now, if you didn't. Cool. Now they want your password again. Helps if you put it in, choose to trust, yes, and voila, right? Now you are on your Raspberry Pi, right? So you could right click, you could open up an integrated terminal, and now, right, I'm using my PC to have a terminal in my Pi, and I can do all my programming right here on a machine that I'm comfortable with, which is nice. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll stop this one, and the next one we'll clone the repository. Cool. We'll put Node on first, I think. Maybe we'll do both.